All right. Welcome to the Road to the World Cup 2026 panel. I like to think that this is the most fun panel of the event because we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about soccer, how it all relates to one another, and how we can all benefit from just this, small tournament happening here in 2026. To first start, I'd like to introduce my panelists. On my far right is Cindy Parlow, who I feel like almost doesn't need an introduction. She is a Hall of Famer, 1999 World Cup champion, two-time Olympic gold medalist, and the first woman president of U.S. Soccer. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Next to her, we have Amy Hopfinger, who is the chief of business and strategy at FIFA. She has been part of this organization since going back to the United Bid and for 2026, so she was instrumental in that. Was with U.S. Soccer for 18 years and is also one of the founders of the She Believes movement, which focuses on advancing forward the community, women, and soccer as a whole. Next to Amy, we have Keith D'Amelio, who is the founder of HairTech Performance Courtesy, a leader in innovation and performance, making sure that the athletes are all at their top of their game. His resume also includes working with Boston Celtics, the Raptors, NBA, WNBA, and WSL, including time as the director of athlete performance at Nike. And finally, we have Jessica Berman, the commissioner of the NWSL. She's been with NWSL since 2022, was instrumental in the negotiations for the first CBA, as well as a historic media rights deal from 2024 that you just, I liked the phrase plussed up last year, adding Victory Plus and extending partnerships with ESPN and CBS. So we have, I think, probably the best people to talk about how to take advantage of 2026. And I think I'll start with someone who's been in it from every single angle. Cindy, can you just set the scene of what 2026 is going to be like from an infrastructure, from an innovation? This is the biggest both, across 3 nations. You've got 48 teams, 104 matches. There's a lot going on. So could you set the stage on how big this is?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize just how big this World Cup is going to be. The most attended World Cup ever was the 1994 Men's World Cup that we've hosted right here in the US. And that was only 24 teams. This is going to be 48 teams, and we're co-hosting with Mexico and Canada. So those of you that don't know much about soccer, it is going to be like 3 or 4 Super Bowls every single day for a month. So it's the biggest sporting event we have ever seen. And at US Soccer, while FIFA is running the show, we're focused really on the impact and the legacy of 2026. And so the legacy initiative for 1994 Men's World Cup was the launching of Major League Soccer. For the 2026 Men's World Cup, we're launching Soccer Forward Foundation, which we're really focused on making sure we get soccer into every school and into every community. My personal goal is that by 2030, every kid can walk, ride their bike, or take public transportation to a safe place to play. So to bring this to life, we're working with our entire ecosystem. We're working with FIFA, CONCACAF, our pro leagues. Jessica sits on our Soccer Forward Foundation board. Our members and our sponsors and the media and our fans to really bring this to life, because we have members in all 50 states, and we want to make sure that regardless of your background, regardless of your zip code, that you have not only access to our game, but the ability to succeed in our game. And so that's what we're really focusing on, is the legacy of 2026 Men's World Cup.
And you mentioned 1994 and how it started MLS, 1999, as someone who was a part of it, re-energized the whole movement of women's soccer. How would you describe what you hope to get out of 2026 with that?
Oh, so much. I mean, again, I don't think people really realize how massive this moment is. And then we're going to follow it up with the 28 Olympics. And then we're the sole bidders for the 2031 Women's World Cup. And this will be the first World Cup that has equal experiences for the fan and the players. than ever before, and we like our chances of winning the bid. FIFA, how are we doing all right on the bid? We're the sole bidders, so I'm liking our chances. But we have this moment in time over the next few years, kicking off with the 26 Men's World Cup, to bring more investment in the game, more fandom, viewership, and Americans love a massive event, right? And then if our men's national team, I think that they can compete against any team in the world on any given day. And if we make a deep run into the tournament, watch out, because this country is gonna catch fire.
And Amy, to kind of build off what Cindy is saying, from FIFA's perspective, you have this unique perspective of having been part of the bid, and now you're seeing it from the FIFA side of the organization. We talked about this being the first 48 team, and it's also the first across three countries. What has that been like, and what do you expect to capitalize infrastructure down to the 16 host cities to larger scale?
Yeah, I think, well, thank you, first of all. Cindy said this is just a massive opportunity. So once in a generation opportunity to bring something this major. So U.S. does mega sporting events. No one has seen something to this size and scale. As Cindy said, 39 days, this is going to take over the country. It's going to take over Canada, Mexico, the United States. Everyone says that, when the World Cup happens in your home country, everything stops. Everyone stops and is watching the game. We've got an opportunity to do that here, which is really unique. Soccer isn't the most prevalent sport, but to Cindy's point, we've got this amazing opportunity to continue to grow the game, to continue to show kids that this is, an amazing sport to play, sponsors to invest in, and, the leagues to continue to grow. What's good for the sport is good for all aspects of the sport, whether it's the men's side or the women's side. So the World Cup has an opportunity to do that. We saw what it did in 94. We saw what it did in 99 and 2003 on the women's side. And this is just another, evolution of it. We've got 16 amazing host cities spread across Canada, Mexico, the United States. They're so invested, engaged. They're all gonna bring their unique aspects, their culture, their city. They're ready to welcome the world. We've got a final draw in December where everyone will find out, final teams will start qualifying. We'll find out where teams are playing. Fans from around the world can start, making their travel plans. We've already got 4.5 million fans interested in buying tickets in the first phase of ticket sales. And we only have a few teams qualified at this point. So the interest is there, the excitement is there, people want to get involved. We've got 1 million+ people that have registered to be a volunteer, which is another amazing aspect of what the World Cup does and brings. People are just excited to be engaged and to be involved. And the opportunity is great, whether it's cutting edge and new ways to host mega sporting events, cross collaboration, cross border collaboration. The massiveness of it is huge, and it sets the U.S. up specifically for things like the 28 Olympics, 31 Women's World Cup, Rugby World Cups. But then on the technical side, we've invested heavily in a pitch research project. That was a space that hadn't been developed, and FIFA went all in to try to make sure that we had the best fields possible for the World Cup. So we've been doing a research program at University of Tennessee and Michigan State University. So it's all different aspects of it. You heard a little bit about transportation. So redefining, how people move to stadiums when it becomes, World Cup time, or move around cities when you're welcoming millions of visitors to your city who maybe have never been there before. So we're in the final sprint of it, and it's really, just cross collaboration across, tens of, probably hundreds of different areas, and trying to make sure that we're all ready and set for June 11th.
Are we at the point where you have the day tracker?
No, I don't do that. That would give me heart palpitations.
Fair enough.
No, it's going to come before we know it anyway. And, we want to make sure that we, collectively I was involved in the sport before this. Hope to be involved in the sport after this. Make sure that we take full advantage of it.
And Keith, I'm not going to skip. I'll come back to you because the pitch innovation is very interesting. But I do want to go to you, Jessica, because both Cindy and Amy mentioned kind of this cross collaboration. And even though it's the Men's World Cup at the Athletic, we just identify them as World Cups. We've already talked about 99, 2003, 94. How is NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League, looking to capitalize on this event next summer?
Well, first, thanks for giving me an opportunity to join this amazing panel. I often say, and when I took this role, I felt so fortunate because the NWSL is in the unique position that we are, I believe, the only team sport that when you close your eyes and you think of greatness, you think of women first. And I think that's just such a huge opportunity for us, particularly as we think about the World's Game coming to America and actually providing an opportunity for this country to really get behind the World's Game at a time when technology is going to bring the game to your fingertips. And so for that reason, our season overlaps with the World Cup. We wish we could actually play through the whole thing. We can't because a lot of our stadiums are either base camps or homes for games, but we are going to return to play during the knockout stage. And so when the congestion reduces a bit, there'll be opportunities for everyone who is here and fans of the sport and maybe who have free time or aren't getting into the Men's World Cup games that are still happening to be able to watch our games. And we think that's a huge opportunity. And we're so fortunate because people like Cindy, when she played, really created this halo around women's soccer in this country, which has really followed the game since the 80s and 90s. And so we just think that's such a huge opportunity. And by the way, whenever I hear Amy talk about her job, it makes me realize that my job is not as hard as hers. She is responsible for coordinating. She sort of undersold her job. She's responsible for coordinating all of those 16 host cities. And so sometimes when I feel really stressed, I'm like, but Amy is executing the World Cup. So we're all behind you, Amy.
One thing that you mentioned and we're talking about here is infrastructure. And I know that that's really important to NWSL and something that you have talked about specifically. What are the infrastructure benefits from this tournament that your teams, which will officially double in size from the original 8 next year, benefit from this?
Well, as an example, I spent this weekend in Kansas City. Our team, the Kansas City Current, clinched the Shield, the fastest team ever to win the regular season. And their stadium is going to be a base camp for the World Cup, a World Cup team. So that's number one. Number two, as a result, they are investing in expanding their training facility to ready for the World Cup, but also our team's going to benefit from that on the other side. There's just a infusion of enthusiasm and investment around infrastructure and the sport of soccer that I don't think you could replicate given the run-up to the World Cup, and it is permeating the entire sport. And so all of that, plus we all are so interested in better understanding playing surfaces. And so what we will learn in this tournament about the pitch quality, about how to play soccer during summer months when it's super hot, about how to keep the players safe, about how to support the fandom around the game when both MLS and the NWSL play spring, summer, fall, and the rest of the world operates on a different calendar. I think we're going to all learn together, and we hope to be able to continue to partner with all the key stakeholders, including U.S. Soccer and FIFA.
Awesome. Yeah, and can I add on to something Jessica was saying? This tournament is benefiting all of us. So at U.S. Soccer, it's enabling us to build our first ever national training center. We're building the Arthur M. Blank U.S. Soccer National Training Center in Atlanta, Georgia, that will open up just before the World Cup, and our men will train there. And this will be an opportunity, as we've seen in past World Cups. The Men's World Cup doesn't just benefit young boys and the men's professional leagues, as Jessica's talking about. We've seen it in the Men's World Cups and the Women's World Cup that we hosted. It benefits the entire soccer ecosystem, regardless of gender, regardless of level. And so we expect to see increased investment in teams, in the sport, in infrastructure, as well as growth of the game. And we at US Soccer obviously are kind of the umbrella organization looking at every aspect of it. And so for the first time ever, we're going to have an actual home for our 27 national teams, a place for all of our members to come and play, to be inspired. And so I think the World Cup is even more impactful afterwards, but in the build up to it, we're already seeing the benefits of what a massive event like this can bring to the infrastructure of soccer in our country.
Yeah, absolutely. And Keith, you're our science guy. PhD in applied science. You've spent your career looking at how to help these athletes reach peak performance. We've talked about pitches. We've talked about a lot of different elements. When you look at the size of this tournament, the innovation that's coming out of it, the expanse of it all, from an innovation standpoint, what do you think we can expect to see coming out of this that benefits the athletes, allows them to, we see athletes playing more and more games in different environments. You're going to be across 3 different countries. So what can we see innovation-wise for that?
I hope a lot, right? That doesn't just touch upon global football. I think a great analogy is the Sydney Olympics, right? And that was really, as sports science in Australia use that, hopefully the way we could potentially use this event, to look for a competitive advantage, and they focused on the science, right? They knew they couldn't compete from an athletic population standpoint with other countries, so that's where they focused, and that benefited the world, right? It gave them a competitive advantage for that Olympics, but that also put Australia on the map for sports science and had that legacy for decades, and it touched every sport, and then it sort of died off, but it's actually growing back now with sort of the Olympics coming back to Australia. My hope is that this event allows resources, just great minds to explore everything from pitch, transportation. It's a really interesting one. Didn't even think about that, but that transcends, that goes into the population and just our normal day-to-day. But I would hope that this event can lead to innovations in understanding global football, yes, but where else can we learn from this, and how can sport as a whole get better? Again, you talk about the increasing in demands. One of the teams I work with is right here in the city, the New York Liberty, and the W is facing expansive growth, just like the NWSL, and the demands on those athletes, and what can we learn to help those athletes perform at a high level for a longer period of time?
Yeah, I think mixing the transportation with the innovation, and when you think of like an athlete perspective, and either the distance that they have to travel or the different environments, altitudes, there's some very high altitudes. What are some of the specific areas or key points do you think this tournament could bring about for that research?
The travel part is a really interesting one, because World Cups in general, there's some movement through a country. This is now on 3 different countries. So, I mean, I've already talked to a few different federations who are, doing some due diligence on the different locations and where they can gain some advantages and put their athletes in a better chance for success. So I think travel is an interesting one. How do they travel, to maximize their athletes' potential and performance? But also, as Cindy mentioned, this isn't one game. This is a month-long tournament. So how do you actually build the durability of these athletes and the daily planning over the course of a month to allow those athletes, hopefully who are playing on that, for that final, to play at their highest level?
Awesome. And I think to kind of get to a wrapping up point, I want to ask each of you what you think success will look like after 2026. Like, what do you hope to see when we're sitting here at the next summit, right after the July tournament? What does success look like for each of your organizations? And Cindy, I'll start with you.
Well, I'll go back to what I said with the Soccer Forward Foundation. This is going to be an amazing event for 39 days. And I think it is going to be a massive success. But eventually, all the teams and FIFA are going to leave. And at US Soccer, we're focused on the impact afterwards. And so really focusing on the Soccer Forward Foundation and making sure that every kid has a place to play our game, has access to our game, and the ability to succeed in our game.
And Amy, for FIFA?
Yeah, I think, solely with my FIFA hat on. You know, a safe, secure, and super successful World Cup. You know, that means 6+ million people in the stands. That means, you know, they can get to the games smoothly. They feel safe at the games. You know, the teams have everything that they need to be successful, and we look back, you know, after the final here, and say, you know, we did everything we possibly could to make sure that we set the tone and pave the way for exactly what Cindy is saying and the growth of the sport.
And to make sure we turn those fans into lifelong soccer fans.
I'm surprised you didn't say winning U.S. soccer winning or men's team winning for you, Cindy.
I hope.
Keith, I know that you touched on it a little bit, but what does success look in the sports science world out of this?
I think increasing our just understanding of athletes, of the sport, but then even more than just understanding, being able to apply it, right? That's often where things break down. And then I would, if we can accomplish anything, what Amy mentioned there in terms of, you know, moving the game forward, that would be a pretty big success as well.
Awesome. And Jessica, for NWSL?
I think for everyone who has a newfound appreciation for the sport of soccer and greatness, that you realize that our women are the best in the world, literally, and they play in the professional league right here every single year, and that you don't actually need to wait for the World Cup to be able to enjoy and appreciate it, and that we have all these incredible global events to look forward to on the horizon. So there's a reason to invest your time and money in better understanding these athletes and their stories and who they are on and off the pitch.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank all of our panelists for taking their time today. I won't say the official number of countdown days, but we'll see everyone in July and then at the end of the tournament for the final here at MetLife. So thank you again.
Thank you.